Speaking of the elections, the IEC, of course, currently hosting an e-voting conference in Cape Town. It's day one of 3 of this gathering, with the aim being to facilitate an informed national dialogue on the feasibility and policy implications of introducing electronic voting in the country. Speaking now is the chairperson of the IEC, that's Mosotho Moepya. Let's listen in.
Of our nation, looking at the future of identity in the Republic. We all know that for you to register and to vote, identity is central to that franchise. And we do, Minister, wish to invite you to talk about that ecosystem. Let me tell you very briefly. When the Minister and I spoke about this, I could sense the excitement in the telephone conversation we had. The Minister has always been talking about digitization. Sai, did I say it properly? Yes, and so I think it's important to let the Minister deliver his keynote address looking at how this e-voting discussion will in fact implicate the ecosystem within which an identity is going to be a key thing to deal with. Minister, I do not want to take more time. South Africa is ready for this discussion. They are keen to hear what your thoughts are, what your policy leaning is on the future of identity in our country. Please come to the stage, and ladies and gentlemen, let us welcome the Minister.
Thank you very much, Chairperson, for that invitation to come and share some thoughts this morning at this very important conference. Allow me to greet the Chairperson of the IEC, Mosotho Moepya. Indeed, we have delved into this area a little bit, and it's good to be here this morning to go a bit deeper with you. Fellow commissioners of the IEC, as well as the CEO, Mr. Sai Mamabolo, good morning to you. And indeed, digitization versus digitalization, an important discussion. Members of the IEC management team, the chairperson of the Portfolio Committee on Home Affairs, as well as the chairperson of the Select Committee. I don't know, Chair, if we want to also invite her to come and join us on stage. I think that would be very much appreciated. Feel free, just while I'm speaking, to do so, Chair. And then also to the members from both houses that have joined us today. I'm looking around, I'm seeing some colleagues from the Department of Home Affairs as well, and I'm sure some other stakeholders that I'm not seeing from the stage, but please do all feel very welcomed, stakeholders, guests, and members of the media. Our meeting here today indeed comes at a very opportune time. Following the outcome of the 2024 general elections and the formation of the Government of National Unity, the Home Affairs ecosystem has embarked on a purposeful reform journey built around digital transformation. Under the 7th Democratic Administration, our apex priority in this space is simple, yet monumentally ambitious, and that is to automate and digitalize as many processes as possible at Home Affairs, the Border Management Authority, and the government printing works. Now, over the past 8 months, we have worked tirelessly to lay the foundation for the reforms required to turn these institutions into digital-first organizations. However, we have not yet spoken much about the Electoral Commission of South Africa, which is as it should be, given its status as an independent Chapter 9 institution. But that is also why I am particularly grateful to the leadership of the IEC, who took it upon themselves to arrange this conference so that we can explore the implications and possibilities of digital transformation for our voting system specifically. This is really important because as much as the IEC is an independent entity, it functions within that broader Home Affairs ecosystem. Elections in South Africa are dependent upon the ability of other stakeholders in this ecosystem to, for example, issue ID documents and control the population register. So given the scale of change that we have embarked on at Home Affairs, it is important to reflect on the role of the IEC in this ecosystem and how it can both mitigate risk but also benefit from the reforms that we are undertaking. Allow me, ladies and gentlemen, to briefly mention a few of these changes that will have ramifications for the IEC and that I suggest you consider carefully in your deliberations over the coming days. Firstly, we are moving determinedly to expand access to smart IDs at a scale never seen before. We will do so by building on the successful pilot project that has rendered ID and passport services in about 30 bank branches over the past decade, as well as the mobile units that we have and the offices in malls that are now in existence. But it really is now time to scale up this initiative to hundreds or even 1,000 locations in bank branches across the country, so that all South Africans can obtain smart IDs much closer to where they live. This will enable us to eventually discontinue the green barcoded ID book, which is far more prone to fraud than the smart ID. The result of this work, I believe, should be felt by the IEC by the time of the next local government elections in 2026 or 27. In other words, I hope you will be seeing many, many more voters with smart IDs as compared to those with the green ID book. That is one of the first key milestones that Home Affairs reform should deliver in your space. But we certainly won't stop there. By the time, secondly, of the next national and provincial elections in 2029, we want to have a fully fledged digital ID system for South Africa. As announced by President Cyril Ramaphosa during his State of the Nation address last month, Home Affairs is hard at work to develop the infrastructure required for a secure digital identity platform. This will enable not only South Africans to securely store their IDs and other official documents on a smart device, but will also provide a verifiable credential for each citizen and permanent resident. I really want to emphasize this point. A digital ID is not a photo on your phone of your smart ID. A digital ID is a verifiable credential through which you can confirm your identity to organs of state, private sector institutions, and to actually make sure that you are exactly who you say you are. And the government needs to provide that public infrastructure for the verifiable credential. I want to also emphasize that this is a sequential process. First will come access to smart IDs for all, and then will come parallel and over time digital ID. The advantage of ending up in this space of digital identity and verifiable credentials is that it will enable us to remotely certify the identity of every person in the country based on their unique facial or fingerprint biometrics. I think it goes without saying that there are opportunities and implications for the IEC in the work that we are doing in this space. The third reform that I think is particularly relevant to the IEC relate to enhancements to the population register. A new national identification registration bill is on my desk as we speak. This bill will reform the population register into a modern digital-first instrument that will record the presence and biometrics of all people who are in our country. It essentially becomes the repository for digital ID, the central storage space through which government, Home Affairs can verify the identity of an individual South African. Just by way of example, beyond the IEC, think about the implications of such a system in the social grant space, our ability to clamp down on fraud and corruption. Because what you must be able to do is to be able to take a photo of someone's face and be able to confirm through Home Affairs that their biometric matches the verifiable credential that signs their digital ID. And just imagine the opportunities for savings, for inclusion, for efficiency of such a system. And then specifically imagine the implications for the IEC in terms of combating fraud, improving efficiency of verifying identity as it relates to voters who register, as it relates to voters who actually, on voting day, need to make their cross. I think these are really important developments as the IEC considers this discussion. But I want to then also emphasize the central role of the population register in all of this. Because for too long, we have used a national population register that fails to adequately record the biometric information of everyone in South Africa. The failure to have what is called a single view of all people in the country is a major contributing factor to the risks associated with illegal immigration, including for our elections, because it enables foreigners to sojourn in the country without their biometrics being detected and stored. The reform to the population register will be coupled with the introduction of an electronic travel authorization that we aim to begin rolling out this year, which will eventually require every person who enters South Africa to provide their biometrics for capturing into this modern new population register. The goal behind this, of course, is obvious. We want to be able to understand who is in South Africa at all times, and critically for the IEC, to differentiate between citizens and non-citizens. Those who are allowed to vote, those who are not allowed to vote, but who are sojourning in South Africa. That is the gap that we aim to plug by making sure that we know the biometric information of everyone in this country at any given time. Finally, there's the work of the Electoral Reform Consultation Panel, which also continues apace. Once that process is concluded, I will table recommendations to Parliament that may result in further reforms aimed at bolstering the accountability of our electoral system. The implications of these 4 reforms combined for the IEC are obvious and important. In fact, the reforms that are now underway at Home Affairs will amount to the most significant intervention since 1994 to bolster South African democracy. As the custodian of elections, this naturally confronts the IEC with at least 2 important questions to my mind. Firstly, what are the implications of these Home Affairs reforms for elections? And how will the IEC ensure that it is able to capitalize and integrate and benefit from these reforms? Secondly then, what are the risks and what are the specific opportunities that this reform window presents the IEC in terms of the digital transformation of its own processes? That obviously is the subject of your discussion over the coming days. But these are the 2 central questions in my mind that I hope the conference will delve into and emerge with ideas and possible solutions. Now, as part of setting the scene for that discussion, allow me to deposit a few more specific thoughts. I think it goes without saying that IEC systems will need to be updated to interact with new Home Affairs solutions, such as digital ID and the verifiable credential. It is therefore important that at a technical level, the IEC participates in the process of developing these new systems to ensure full interoperability. I think as we proceed along the path of digital transformation in this ecosystem, we will hopefully build trust and credibility with South Africans that we are in fact capable of delivering some of these undertakings. But I think soon we will find one of our big challenges becomes interoperability. We have to make sure that different systems speak to each other, and that is really central to the vision that the President also outlined at SONA, the idea of the whole government available to you at a touch. And so I would really implore this discussion to find ways of ensuring that the IEC integrates from the start into how these solutions will be used going forward. But I do at the same time then want to compliment the Commission for the work that has been done to enable online voter registration. I think it's important to reflect on that as we look forward now, because this is exactly the kind of reform that we want to see moving forward. Then at the same time, I also have to use this opportunity to speak as an ordinary voter. Now, during last year's election, I was rather perplexed that on the one hand, online voter registration worked well, but then there were issues with the machines that are supposed to scan those IDs. And that led many voting stations that I saw with my own eyes to revert to pen and paper. I think this is the disjuncture that we also need to deal with as we move forward. This disjuncture that is epitomized by the rolling out of really cutting-edge online voter registration system on the one hand, and then voters seeing the IEC using a pen and a ruler on voting day on the other hand. It is important that we talk about issues like this, not only the high-level technical discussions, because ultimately our shared aim here should be to deliver a more efficient and more secure voting experience. And this brings me to my final input ahead of this conference. One of the points that I have been careful to emphasize when speaking about digital transformation in this whole ecosystem is that our goal cannot simply be to move inefficient processes from paper to digital. Frankly, if we think about it for a moment, there is no point in digitalizing a process if it's going to be just as slow, just as inefficient, just as insecure as the manual paper-based process that preceded it. That is why digital transformation requires more than just technology. There's a difference between digitalizing and digital transformation. It requires us to change. We need to improve the process ultimately. It requires, therefore, a deep re-examination of all existing processes to ensure that the introduction of technology becomes a catalyst that transforms the process itself. Now, I would submit there is only one clear way to do this, to be successful, to ensure that you're not just moving an inefficient, insecure process onto a digital platform, but that you're actually making the system fundamentally more efficient and more secure. And that way is by always keeping in mind the end user. This goes for Home Affairs, it goes for the Border Management Authority, it goes for GPW, and it goes for the IEC, and frankly it should go for the whole government. Keep the end user in mind. Because the truth is, as much as the technology may be impressive, and I'm sure some of the vendors here will blow our minds with what they can offer, the truth is that the digital transformation of government is not an end in and of itself. It is a means towards delivering better services, to enhancing security, and to ensuring that the user of any specific service walks away satisfied. In the case of the IEC, this obviously means that the ultimate goal of digital transformation should be to ensure that queues get shorter, not longer, on voting day. It should be to ensure that citizens have higher trust, not less trust, in the integrity of election outcomes. That security should be stronger, not weaker. And that the efficiency of any electronic system should be better, not worse, than under the existing paper-based system. And when I look at the report and I look at some of the countries that have failed, I submit to you part of the reason why there's failure in some of these attempts is because it ends up not actually fundamentally improving the process. And therefore that public trust, that legitimacy, that belief that embracing technology makes things better gets left behind. And I think it is vitally important that we keep that in mind as we consider all of the technical possibilities that are out there. Ladies and gentlemen, our vision for the total digital transformation of the Home Affairs ecosystem is therefore not principally about technology. It is about people, about improving the quality, security, and efficiency of our products as experienced by the people who use our services every day. Nowhere is this perspective more important than in the case of elections. South Africa indeed has a proud track record of conducting elections with integrity, which is a testament to the work of the IEC. But declining voter turnout and increasing radicalism, including from those who seek to question the outcome of legitimate elections, are warning signs that we must do more to enhance public trust in democracy. Ultimately, it must therefore be the goal of reform, digital or otherwise, to deliver a better experience to the end user if we are to protect the credibility and legitimacy of our elections. There is nothing more dangerous, frankly, for our elections and by extension our democracy than voters who turn away from a voting booth, than voters who lose confidence in the system through which they are supposed to govern the country in which they live. And that is why we must always keep those end users, the people, first, even as we embrace technology. Chair, it is with this responsibility in mind that I wish you every success with what is a path-breaking conference and discussion. I look forward to the outcome of these proceedings and indeed to working together with the IEC as it charts its own journey of digital transformation into the future. And at the outcome of that process, I look forward to making sure that we achieve that central goal, which is to build a stronger democracy where the people who interact with the IEC, who interact with services in the Home Affairs ecosystem, end up having more trust, more hope, more belief in the integrity of our systems, and by extension then, the future of this beautiful country. Thank you very much.
All right, so there you have it, the Home Affairs Minister, Dr. Leon Schrieber, giving the keynote address.